All in a day's work. Maybe a week for you.
The All Veterans Discussed video on Annie resides as my most viewed shitpost at 40,000 views total. It's also the one I'm least satisfied with overall. Because of the sheer total of ratings, I wish I get better second thoughts on.
I want to talk about the relationship with your father. How he used to fuck you in the bottom.
And this revisit not only works to correct past mistakes, it's also an opportunity for a second analysis on the very first new character. Back then, we all considered she would be incredibly busted, capable of dishing out high amounts of damage in consistent combo strings. While that holds true, that's basically all she can do with her kit, often limiting her offensive potential. That and her movement speed is very low. So why is her kit this mediocre? Well, that's because in terms of any utility, all she has is unpassable recovery with Seigen Beam and debuff reflection with Photobop, all of which are done way better by other characters. Her best call to action would be Destruction Pillar, a ridiculously powerful special move that can instantly wipe 10% of the opponent's health if it crits. The rest of her kit is composed of a rarely useful teammate heal, Immobilize, which disrupts your play more than the opponent's, and Unflinching, I guess. There's also Guard Break in the form of Crescent Cut, and it's fine for what it's worth, but again, unblockables are done way better by other characters. It's always a bunch of extra steps with Annie, you know? Her character ability is on the slow end, taking up to 20 seconds to actually be usable. Once it reaches the halfway point, Star Power becomes available. It allows Annie to shoot stars with each regular attack, and this can deal full damage even if blocked. Pretty heavy chip damage when confronting Annie on defense, but it's nothing impossible to deal with. Most specials also get extras when used during Star Power, but they will consume a fair chunk of meter, so pay attention. Market wise, it's piss easy to understand. Red Shift is highly coveted for attackers to further increase their attack, while Blue Shift is better off for defenders to reduce damage to some extent. Well, I said defenders. Defender, singular. And prestige wise, it's additional strength for Star Power projectiles. Usually negligible, but more damage is more damage, eh? So as a whole, Annie's kit can only be described as pure brute force. Nothing inherently wrong with that, but already you can expect her to falter massively during Rift battles and against similarly complex scenarios. Starchild is a bronze that's been heavily overlooked in the game as a whole. And for good reason, she's not very good. Her only true call to action is a passable at best guard break. Its odds are low, but in theory it should be compensated by the fact Star Mode can dish out far more hits. Oh, and by the way, it requires Star Mode active. The slow is practically useless, and the extra bonus damage to blockbusters isn't all that noticeable. Obviously it's better than nothing, but it's not a variant seller like, oh wow, look at this sick 50% bonus increase on blockbusters alone and with Star Power active only. Frankly, it's better to carry a couple Crescent Cuts instead, or use a different variant for the job if one wants to experiment with guard break.
If I had a TV show, I'd run that sucker into the ground.
Solar Flare is a worthwhile budget option when it comes to Annie's, although still somewhat limited. It's cool she has reduced cooldown for her star meter, so it takes less to actually reach full capacity, and it's relevant for her to do so, since that's when she can activate the second part of her ability, 5 enrage stacks and haste, for as long as star power is active. Its downside is that it also inflicts a 5-second fatigue, but this can be combated by having immunity supports, deactivating star power, or using Photobop to reflect it at the opponent. Or you can grow some balls and gamble. Yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't jeopardize the streak. She's a passable option for beginners thanks to hitting rather hard for a bronze, but do expect to drop her once you get better choices.
You higher mammal, can you read?
Triple Threat is used by Okaden God, so we know she's bad. Okay, I'm just kidding. She is rather niche, however, and requires heavy investment to make use of, but has proven she has potential, for she's one of the rare variants with access to invincibility, and I don't think I need to spell out the benefits of that. It's also a given that it always has to be hard to obtain, so what's the catch? For one, it competes against immunity and unflinching for Spotlight, and it also only shows up when star power is active. There's a major relieving factor that plays out, where she has about 33% odds of increasing her star power by 30% on special usage. so it's possible that you can whip out invincibility much earlier than usual. Specials also refresh buff duration, so she's capable of extending the length of her invincibility even further. All of this makes her sound awesome, but is brought down by a few factors. You want a really specific set of 4 specials and 1 blockbuster to maximize its efficiency, as well as investing in accuracy to further raise their star meter increase odds. Additionally, she's the weakest Annie stats-wise, so it may take more offensive investment than others to make the most of. It's no secret that she's rarely ever seen, nonetheless she can prove competent if well trained and played.
Oh, baby, a triple! Oh, yeah!
Galactic Glamour is a lesser useless star child. It helps that she inflicts guard break in regular hits rather than block ones, meaning you can constantly lock the opponent on a guard break cycle. It also helps that it's not restricted to star power only. Its would-be downside is the need for criticals to make it work, but given it's Annie we're talking about, I don't think it's that big of an issue. As for the auto block when getting hit, it may lead to certain people to consider her for defense. The thing is, she's not difficult to deal with, as long as you carry Curse, Dead-Eye or Precision, although fighting her normally also works. Overall, fun variant for prize fights, but also kinda there. I wouldn't blame you if you forget she exists. It happens to me with every Cape Shit movie.
Oh, it's the Juggernaut, bitch, and I got a bitch with me.
Ninja Star is a popular high-power, low-cost variant. That's because of her projectiles being boosted by 50% per debuff inflicted, meaning moves such as Pillar of Creation are bound to deal more absurd numbers than usual. Of course, if it were exclusively reliant on Annie's kit, then it would be passable but unremarkable. Thankfully, her other side of the ability happens to inflict guard break on an enemy counter, and it removes 1 buff upon doing so. She's easily the most beginner-friendly option for when it comes to Annies, thanks to horsepower and mild utility. But she's ultimately rather limited. The buff removal is fine, but it will take a while to remove a large row of them. Credit where it's due, she can just not give a shit about final stand, something you cannot say for other Annies.
Stop hacking! 3, 4, 5 headshots.
Ageless Wonder is a complicated one. She has reliable enough immunity by timing blocks, and given the current Cripple Decker meta, that does make her slightly more valuable than usual, and any block projectiles allow her to gain precision stacks, so theoretically she could dispatch most complex threats with relative ease. Unfortunately, she's rarely seen because of the complexity of her ability. Don't get me wrong, it's not something overly obnoxious to do, but immunity and precision may ring a bell for some people. Indeed, that's part of Parasol's base kit. An unfair comparison maybe, but it's the main crux of the issue. Parasol manages to simplify what Ageless Wonder can pull off in a matter of 2 special moves. Whether she rises to any sort of place in the meta or not, that's still up to whatever the game feels like, but she's in a strange spot of potentially meta, but outclassed by a whole character entirely.
What the fuck was going through your head?
Materia Girl was once praised for being one of the lucky few to feature timeless precision in her ability. Despite being difficult to access due to fighting against 4 other buffs to show up, it still meant a potential game changer on your side. However, it was decided this was too slow and inconsistent. Not only did you have to wait for the star power to get halfway, you also have to hope and pray to get the right buff in the first place. Other possible gains range from passable like Enrage and Regen, mediocre like Auto Block, and fairly useful like Haste, but it's usually precision the main selling point. Other bonuses would include quickly gaining star meter when taking any hit. It's useful in theory, but it also relies on the AI being cooperative enough, and the 10% odds don't really help, and the constant blockbuster meter is fine. Other than that, Materia Girl sits on the awkward place of being potentially good, but held back by too much time and luck required.
Me niego a ser español cook.
Timeless Hero is a conundrum of a variant. Initially I gave her a positive score given how seemingly powerful infinite star power is, but the road to get there isn't simple. You need to gather at least 1 stack of auto block, enrage and regen in order to gain infinite star power, as well as maxed out blockbusters for good measure. There's 2 main ways of doing so. The obnoxious method is by using her ability, where every 20 combo hits you'll gain a random buff out of the previous 3. Just one major caveat, the slightest hit will remove all of them at once, so watch out. The lazy method relies on supports that may grant you what you need. Usually the common thought is both rerun and icy hot, but you can also pull this off with inner pieces and a fire variant of your choosing. The one drawback would be requiring taunt to make this work, but it otherwise cuts off all of the grind. All of this to hit slightly harder than before. Well, I won't deny, it's fun at least when it happens. Also, before moving on, it's only fair to address the prestige problem. Apparently infinite star power will not add to the prestige counter. So I would say it's still passable to invest into it, but you must be conscious of that bug when using Timeless. Moonstruck is regarded as one of the better Annies. She's still on the average end if you ask me, but she definitely stands out a lot more thanks to having two very helpful elements. The first would be inflicting Wither on a projectile critical hit. Self-explanatory enough, it makes for noticeable meter control. The second is instant star meter, also on projectile critical. As such, these two work in a symbiotic fashion, constant meter control and pseudo-infinite star meter. It's all fine and good, but as is tradition with Annie, that's all she's the best capable of. Not that great for prize fights though. The revival aspect is mediocre. It helps that you get star meter real quick, so the max star power requirement is a non-issue. But it only works once and relies on Moonstruck's lost HP. It's stat based for the record, not percentual, so it's a little less practical. Overall fine variant and arguably one of the better Annies you could get, but she's ultimately a meter control machine.
Why did you fucking not go to school when you were a kid, you dumb shit?
The best way to describe Model Leader is as someone that's been constantly toned down one way or another, be it with variants like Beasking or Standout, buffs such as Deadeye or Precision, or meta changes in the form of the Frost Armor nerf. Permanent autoblock is the main reason as to why she's been scorned for years. Indeed, having the player's offense cripple like this was what made her infamous in the first place. But if one is to carry Curse, Precision or what have you, she becomes much easier. It's not an instant win though, as she periodically removes all debuffs from herself and all of her teammates, so running those becomes much more risky. Model is on a similar spot to that of lmao and Forever, where both have been fought for a long enough time that players figured out and were given the best counters against her. But rest assured that she still remains somewhat relevant, since she still demands some form of counter if you don't wish to have your attacks auto-block 3/4 of the match.
They do not live in fucking England!
Some time has passed since Starlight Rose has been revealed to the public, so thoughts on her may be on the muddy side for most of us who weren't able to get her. Still, for what one can see at first glance, she's a fairly useful support, by removing debuffs and granting barrier in a well-timed block with any teammate on the field. Again, it's not a big deal if you know how to exploit the AI, and by itself it's convenient to get rid of shit like disabled blockbusters, hex and so on. Its main downside once again is that it relies on AI interaction, and that could potentially mean a tier 3 or something equally annoying. The benefits don't end here though. As long as you benefit from barrier, you'll constantly gain enrage and regen, doubling down as an offense-oriented support. This retroactively makes other barrier users furthermore useful, given they gain an extra boost and can chip out some extra health points. She may not be the most convenient to use given the AI reliant ability, but she's definitely on the useful side. Here's hoping she gets released soon, and that the October-December batch is also released alongside this one, because Jesus Christ, 9 months for a bunch of variants is too long.
I've never seen this show. What the fuck is going on?
Remember when I mentioned Ageless Wonder has the potential for fitting the meta, but isn't as popular because of being slower and less convenient? Starshine took at least 7 tequila shots, then passed out mumbling something about being able to do much worse. Indeed, Starshine lives in infamy due to having legitimately useful tools, but taking very long to make any use of them. A total 20 seconds for immunity and a blessing stack, and 30 seconds for permanent precision. And for the record, the immunity is removed upon the opponent tagging out, and both are also removed if you tag Starshine out. Those right there are the biggest flaws going on. You must wait a considerable amount of time for her abilities to kick in, with no shortcuts to speak of. For the record, the opponent may set up its game by either gaining thorns or landing a curse. Understandably, permanent precision is a powerful buff that should take a while to get, but on the other hand, Windswept can get it 5 seconds or less. I'll give her the benefit of being useful enough to actually dispose of enemies quickly, quotation marks. And immunity, scarce as it may be, but it's just other shit to use. You're mostly waiting most of the match.
God fucking damn it!
Let's say you want to hit as hard as possible while using Annie. Well, Firebranded is the option for you, because that's literally the only thing she's capable of. With star power active, specials and blockbusters grant enrage stacks. And that's all the mileage you're gonna get. By all accounts, she can do a really good job against the sturdiest defenders. That is, unless they don't get in the way of her game plan. But regardless, the horsepower is there. It's just the lack of anything else that makes using Firebranded not as convenient as other options like Beasking or even Shadow Puppet. The stun and heavy bleed on charge attack is fine, but it's something you'll only consider occasionally. Not because it's hard to use, just that it feels more optional than anything. And benefiting from enrages is usually the better option, though I do like that she can potentially land a 10-second stun. All in all, Firebranded is the rawest hard hitter possible, but she doesn't do anything else, quite literally.
¡Viva Vigo! Para siempre mi cago en paz.
I am Cornelio!
Get the hell out of the cockpit!
You said...